My name is, welcome everyone to our August 2024 SAL structured conversation. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is John Sayre. I'm the Associate Director of Academic Advising at the College of Charleston in South Carolina. And I'm also a member of the SAL Professional Learning and Development Committee. And on behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank all of you for participating in today's structured conversation. We certainly enjoy having all of you here. SAL and our committee are committed to involving, featuring, and representing diverse perspectives and identities in our offerings to meet your professional development needs. You can help us achieve this goal by submitting your own structured conversation proposal. More information can be found about that on our SAL Conversations page, and I'm going to copy and paste the link to that in our group chat here. So please check that out. If you've got a presentation in mind, or maybe something you've shared elsewhere or looking forward to sharing in the future and you'd like to share it with our group, please fill out that proposal. During this presentation, we invite you to participate by asking questions, sharing your comments.
Thank you for calling Southwest
and providing feedback through the chat function that we will be monitoring. So if you have questions as we progress, please feel free to type them into the group chat, and we will address them as they are as appropriate to our conversation. As we begin today, for those of you that have joined the meeting, please type in your name and your title and your institution. Let us know who you are, who's joined us today, and who's going to be participating in our conversation. So let's get to today's presentation. Please join me in welcoming our presenter, Anya Pachalska. Anya's presentation is about is titled, How Can I Conduct and Share Student Affairs Assessment Research Across Campus, Procedures and Tips. Today's presentation is going to focus on how student affairs assessment work relates to student success initiatives and walks through how Anya's assessment created, conducted, and disseminated an extensive sense of belonging study at her institution. Dr. Pachalska is the Director of Student Affairs Assessment Research and Planning at North Carolina Wilmington. She has her PhD in higher education from Indiana University and has worked in higher education assessment for over 8 years. In addition, she has worked in student-facing positions at several universities. She has expertise in quantitative and qualitative methods, equity-based assessment, and student success, and is published in national publications and is a frequent conference presenter. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Pachalska. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you, Sal, for giving me the opportunity to present, as well as everyone coming here today. I'm honestly very excited to share this work because this is something that I've been working on for a while, and I would love to get your feedback and ideas also as I move forward with this work. So as John said, I'm the Director of Student Affairs Assessment Research and Planning at University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and I'll be sharing just my thoughts and my background and my research, which I did in a project the last academic year. But I wanted to point out before we get too much into the presentation is that this picture that you see on this title slide. This actually has a lot of people, as you can see, kind of touching each other, holding hands in a circle. And I think the major takeaway, if you took away one thing from this presentation, is that this is teamwork and requires a lot of collaboration across institutions. So as you can see, this picture is very intentional. So John did a fantastic job of introducing me, but I wanted to provide a little bit more context about kind of why I'm presenting about this topic today. So I got actually 2 undergraduate majors from a University of Minnesota, and one was actually in Western music history, and the other was in East Asian studies focused on Mandarin Chinese. I then spent 2 years in China, teaching English and learning Chinese to get kind of a cultural experience and immersion abroad. And then I went to Indiana University, Bloomington, where I got that PhD John just mentioned. And I was really focused at that time in master's, one in ethnomusicology, focused on music and anthropology, and the other in library science. So as you see, that's a very humanities strong background. So the question is then, how did I end up kind of in higher education? Well, first of all, I felt like this context and the humanities strength actually helped me because I always look at the environment and cultural context. And two, I was realizing as I was getting a bit older that my true calling was actually serving students through student success. And I've also been very privileged at Indiana University to get a lot of opportunities to do student-facing work. As John mentioned, I was actually an undergraduate academic advisor, program coordinator. So I worked with undergraduate students all the way from recruiting to alumni relations. So I feel very comfortable working with students. I understand the undergraduate experience, I can broad level what they're thinking, but also have a strong collaborations with staff and faculty as well. So that's a little about me. And I realized as a parting thought in this slide that I really wanted to make a difference in student success at a broad level. And that's why I pursued the higher education PhD and moved into my current position at University of North Carolina, Wilmington, because I realized I wanted to make a big impact. And one of the greatest ways you can do that is through research and kind of showing about how initiatives can affect students at a broader level. Why the one-to-one interactions many of our staff members do at the university or even group interactions are very valuable. It's also, I believe, important to kind of do these big research projects as well. So I know some of you have already put down some of these things I have in this next slide, which is kind of your name and position in your institution. But I'd love if for the next minute or so, you can also put down your years of doing student affairs assessment in the chat. You can just list that. I would love to see kind of the background of how many people have experience. And if you have zero, that's fine as well. I just kind of want to get the temperature of this virtual room about how much experience you have in student affairs assessment. So I'll give you a minute or two just to type in some numbers as you feel comfortable doing so. Okay, I see 0 in 1 year. That's great. Almost 3 years, 2 years. 15 various campuses, 1.5, 6, 15 years, 1 year graduate assistant experience. 10 plus years. Okay, around 12 years. 14, 10. This is fantastic. I have some people who have a long history of assessment experience. I'm kind of in the middle. It seems like in this group I have 8 years, but we also have some newbies, which is fantastic. I'm glad that I can talk to all of you, some of you who are maybe are veterans in the field, while some of you are kind of entering and learning more about the field as you gain experience in this area. So I am wanted to provide 3 learning outcomes for you today so you kind of know how this presentation is going to be structured. So first, I'm going to introduce student affairs assessment and also institutional student success. I feel like our work in student affairs assessment is extremely valuable, but sometimes, and I am guilty of this as well, we can get lost in the weeds. Example is a lot of my work has to do with helping individual student affairs units with their assessment. Why that's extremely valuable, I also believe I have a responsibility to help student success at a broader level as well. So I want to kind of introduce my definition of student success and our student affairs assessment definition, at least in my lens, and how they're related. The second thing I want to talk more about is actually about a study I did last academic year. And that will illustrate how to conduct and share successful student affairs assessment research across and beyond campus. So I'll introduce a framework that I put together, but I also wanted to provide a case study so you could understand it better in a certain context. And then 3, I'm going to ask all of you in breakout rooms later on in this session to kind of look at the framework document I'm going to share later in the chat, and also work in small groups about an assessment project, or if you all feel comfortable sharing, and put in the framework and also kind of try to test it on your own. If you're going to do some kind of major project, or you're in the process of doing it or have completed, does this work in this framework? What are ways you can kind of build and start to do your own work in this area, of course, if you're interested in doing so. So let's move now to the definition of student success. And this is something that I was thinking about for several years and put together. So I'm just going to read this definition. I want to take a minute or two to also contextualize it. So student success transcends student retention and graduation by including elements such as well-being, sense of belonging, career development, and academic, social, and career self-efficacy. The goal is to help students prepare for post-graduation success regardless of the path after graduation. So I know that many of us, and rightly so in higher education, are focused on retaining our students and helping them graduate. This is kind of, in a way, kind of a bread and butter, what we do at the institution. But I feel like what's also important, and I feel that's also being talked about more and more nationally in institutions, are these other more soft skills, such as well-being, sense of belonging, career development. In other words, how can we help our students feel like they're capable, and when they graduate, they can decide what path they want to embark on? Because also, as we all know, we have a more diversifying student population. What are ways we can do besides just help them take the right classes and help them graduate, work to be really powerful individuals who be able to kind of be self-reliant or gain self-reliance and help them be successful in whatever path they decide to choose after graduation. So I also want to define student affairs assessment. Again, I feel like there's a general idea of what this is, but in my lens, I see it as measuring the effectiveness of post-secondary student learning outcomes and programs and services outside the classroom. So often many people talk assessment, higher education. We often go to the classroom. That's extremely valuable. We need great classes for students to graduate. But I feel like in student affairs, we have an important role to play, especially if we go back to that student success definition, because as seen in the second point of the slide, we're really focused on helping students grow and gain career skills, I would say, as well. And that's where student affairs, I feel, can add really value, as well as otherwise supporting students on their journey through higher education. So let's move now to the framework. And this is something, as you who might be familiar with assessment, you're just shaking your head and saying, I know this. And the reason is it's based on the assessment cycle we all know and love. But I kind of revised it to show how it would work in the a major campus project context. So as you see, the first step is prepare. Of course, you have to prepare for a road trip. I always tell my graduate assessment students, if you see assessment as a road trip, you have to make sure that you know where you're going. If necessary, you get hotels, you have all the supplies, so you just don't get in the car and drive. It's always great to have a plan. The second thing we'd have to do is kind of do the assessment. The third is to evaluate not only about the assessment results, but then also about like how you did in the process. And then finally, what's so important, I believe, in assessment is sharing it out. Rather than putting in the results on a bookshelf and leaving it be, let's go and share the results. Let's also go and talk to people about getting their input and how it could become even better, or if there's additional information about the assessment that maybe practitioners have, they can help you better contextualize the results. And of course, you go back to the cycle and then you do prepare, assess, evaluate, and share and improve again. So now that I explain about student affairs assessment, student success, as well as the overall framework, I want to contextualize this with a major sense of belonging study I did at UNCW last fall, in fall 2023. So the goal was to examine the undergraduate experience and sense of belonging from a variety of backgrounds through focus groups. We've had major surveys at our institution for a while, but I really wanted to focus about what do undergraduates think, rather than saying, example, in a survey that I feel very comfortable at this institution putting agree, what is their thought patterns? Why do they feel like they belong, or why do they feel like they value being at the university, or maybe why don't they? So at the end of the day, and I'll explain the process in a little bit, we were able to have 63 participants with virtual and in-person focus groups and interviews. We have approximately 18,000 students at UNCW, and then we have approximately 14,000 undergraduates. So if you think of that big number and you look at 63, that doesn't seem much, but in qualitative research, we always focus on kind of getting a small sample and seeing the themes that can be brought in a later date to a larger sample, and or have questions we can do through bigger surveys or quantitative assessments down the line. So in terms of our study, in the focus, I feel like 63 was a great number to get a little bit of an idea of what the undergraduate experience at my institution is like. So I think as I walk you through these 4 stages, as you see, I have the different parts of the framework in here. We will start with preparation. I want to mention the timeline, that this basically took about a year to complete from start to finish. So as you start to embark, or you've already embarked on your own projects, be prepared to spend some time on this as well. So as you can see here, I really started with this project in April 2023. And I'll be honest, from day one, it was a group project. It was just not me, Anya, thinking about getting this done. I collaborated from day one. I feel is much more valuable because I've done so. So what I first did was kind of create some research questions and interview protocol with my research team. I'm very privileged to have a staff of a research analyst as well as a graduate assistant. So we thought about these research questions and interview protocol and got a draft put together. Of course, I was checking of key people within student affairs, but I also was looking to do collaboration across campus because I was looking at some minoritized populations. I also contacted a senior diversity, equity, inclusion leader in summer 2023 to get buy-in. We went through IRB, and the reason for that is I knew that I wanted to share this more widely rather than just inside the institution. So we got IRB approval. And then we were also testing some of the protocol questions with student workers inside the Division of Student Affairs. I found that really relevant because I wanted to get the student perspective and make sure that the questions that were being asked were actually how the students were interpreting it, or another way, where students interpreting the questions the way that we wanted them to interpret it. I also had for these different groups some undergraduate student co-interviewers for domestic students. I had 4 different workers who I was privileged to work with, and they provided great contributions in the context with these students because I identify as a white cisgender woman and I do not have the lived experience of some of these other groups. So I was very lucky I could find undergraduate students who self-identify these groups. So I was able to go and gather their input when we're interviewing, but also post as well, as I'll explain a bit later. And then the domestic students groups were one group, but I also was collaborating with the Office of International Students and Scholars to get the international student take on sense of belonging in their undergraduate experience as well. So as you can see from the slide, I was already collaborating even before preparing the assessment with many people across the institution, and not only asking, can you do this with me? I was also asking for the input as we were crafting the questions to make sure it was meaningful for them. And I was also asking things that were kind of relevant to them. Example is I don't work with international students, so that office could provide me some good insights about what categories we have and kind of what are some things they're interested in learning as well. So the second stage was really focused on assess. So this was basically taking place in the period of around 6 weeks, where we had 2 different groups. First, we had for the international students, virtual focus groups and interviews that was preferred for that population. And I collaborated with some international student staff as well as a graduate assistant to conduct these interviews and groups. And then we transferred in October to early November to in-person focus groups with student co-interviews. This was the domestic group, and because we have more domestic students and international students, it was easier to get bigger groups so we could have full focus groups rather than just individual interviews as well. The next phase is talking about evaluate. So this took about 2 months as well. We had a lot of data to dig through because we were very privileged where we could actually record in Zoom, so the transcripts were automatically generated, but we also had to make sense of this. So I did 2 things. Before kind of digging into the results of my research team, I actually asked for debriefing sessions from the domestic students who were my co-interviewers, as well as the Office of International Students and Scholar staff. I found these debriefing sessions very helpful because A, they have the lived experience of these populations and they could really provide additional context and maybe things that my research team and I missed because we don't work directly with these students as these people do. But then also give them kind of a sense of contributing to the study where they just don't ask the questions, but they also can help contribute to the results and make it a richer experience as well. So the last stage of this framework is share and improve. And you're going to notice again, it took 4 months to really share out the results. I'm very privileged to work at an institution that's very welcoming and allowing me to kind of share the results of a wide variety of people across campus. So the first thing my team and I did in late fall 2023 was to create an executive summary and a comprehensive report that could be shared across campus. We wanted to provide some written documentation. We wanted a short document, executive summary of approximately 1 page where it's kind of like a soundbite of what the results were. But for people who really wanted to dig in the results, we had a comprehensive report. We also presented to various stakeholders across campus. I was very privileged that results could be shared with the chancellor, his senior cabinet, but also I was presenting to a wide variety of staff. I shared some information with some faculty members as well. Through different groups, people across the Division of Student Affairs are very welcoming to hear the research as well and the findings. So it was great to really present to those folks, but also to get feedback, because as I was sharing the experience that the students were telling us, me and my research team and my collaborators, I started to get an additional perspective and context that from when these people talk to these groups of students, they're hearing this, it aligned or misaligned. So it was a very enriching experience. And I also hope that I gave the people I presented to some better idea of the lived experience of the undergraduates here at UNCW. And like I was just, the last point was mentioning, it was not only through learning about the student experience and having a conversation, but then also I was getting feedback about perhaps future studies could include a larger group of students to kind of get more perspectives of the more undergraduates rather than having a smaller sample of around 63 students. I'm going to put this file into chat, but I'm also going to start sharing my screen. I recommend that you download this file now because we'll be putting you out in great breakout rooms in just a few minutes on your computer, so you can use this as a reference as we go through the breakout experience. So let me go and just start sharing another document, which is this assessment project framework, and you can feel free to follow along if you want on your own computer. So, okay. So it looks like you can see my application, which is great. So as you see at the top of this document, we have that cycle again of prepare, assess, evaluate, and share and improve. So what I'm going to be doing just before we do our breakout sessions is to walk through this. And I also want to provide some tips. It's one thing to kind of speak at a broader level, but I wanted to provide some suggestions and some context for that as well. Like I was saying earlier during this presentation, that I often see assessment as a road trip. And it's very important before you're going to go on a road trip to figure out where you're going and also have a plan. So again, before you do anything, determine your assessment outcomes in our research questions to make sure that you know what you're doing and you have a purpose. If you need to go through IRB approval, it's good to go and do that ahead of time. Give yourself, I mean, some institutions can take longer, but like 6 weeks or so to go through the process. You need to create a detailed timeline of every step and who is responsible for each step, especially if you do these campus-wide initiatives where you start recruiting in many different ways, as I'll illustrate below. It's good to kind of have a very detailed timeline and also make sure that we know who's supposed to do what at each time. What I was mentioning a few minutes ago during my own experience, make sure you check in with relevant stakeholders of your instrument questions. Does it include what you need? I mean, does it include what is needed for the research questions, but also is there anything that your partners want to ask? Because often I see assessment as a group effort, and if there's something that they want to be asked that also aligns with kind of your purpose, why not include it? And it also creates greater buy-in among these constituents. And finally, like I was saying earlier in my presentation, try to find a target audience member to review this finalized assessment to ensure they understand it. If you're doing it of staff, get a staff member from the target group to look at it. Students, do the same thing. Make sure that the questions you ask are interpreted in the way you want by the target audience. Moving on to the assess part. Make sure you test the instrument before it's launched. Again, this is something that we often think is common sense, but you'd be surprised that sometimes you try to test it and you launch it, and then, for example, a survey, oops, actually the survey expired because you forgot to click a button. So again, get it tested before you launch. Make sure that you work out any possible bugs. What I'm really into actually now as I progress in my career is trying to recruit participants in multiple ways. Oh, is it possible for you to share the questions that are asked to students? Apologies, I see a message in the chat. Yes, I will make a note for that, and that can be shared after the presentation, probably through Cell. So going back to this document, so I know that we often use email as a gold standard, especially random sample, because that's, you know, an authentic way. This is kind of a quantitative gold method. But as we all know, students are busy. They don't always check their emails as often as we do. So one thing that really worked in my focus groups that I found was extremely effective, unintentional, but extremely effective, is that some of the student workers were recruiting their friends. They said, hey, there's a focus group session at this time, why don't you come? And then one session, I got over 10 students because somebody just came and asked a question. All the students were in an area, they came together. And that was more effective than sending out emails. So my point is that it's good to think outside the box and think, what are some other ways we can get our students' attention in this kind of information-rich area? So the other thing I'd recommend with these kind of larger assessments is to have a 4 to 6 week assessment window. And the reason I want a broader window is it takes time to get the word out. Even if you're prepping before, it takes time for information to reach the students. And you also want time to provide several reminders through whatever medium you do to make sure you get the most maximum student, or I would say audience member participant. And then finally have backup plans in case you don't have participants. If example, your email approach doesn't work, is there something else you can do? Can you do small ball context, which is talking about a few key contexts of your audience and they try to ask other people to come? Is there any other way to incentivize these participants to come? Moving on to the evaluate stage, you have to determine what went well and what did not go well. Example is for a focus group project for me, I realized from this last year that email maybe was not the most effective way. And if I'm going to do something like this in the future, I might try to do more word of mouth or other ways to get students besides sending emails. You have to analyze the results and like what I shared of the documents, figure out about the assessment outcomes in our research questions. Are they answered? You know, what are some other things you're finding? And then, like what I was mentioning a few minutes ago, try to get a target audience member. Either you have co-interviewers from that group, or maybe you can get somebody afterward to kind of, you can explain the results, maybe show them some results, like an abbreviated version or the full version, depending what you feel comfortable with, and see if they have any different interpretations or additional context to help you better understand the data. Because while we really enjoy assessing folks and we love to get this information and I love to learn about undergraduate student experience, I right now am not an undergraduate student, so I don't have their lived experience. So kind of getting a check by somebody from that population could be very useful as well. The last stage I want to briefly talk about is share and improve. So I recommend doing something such as an executive summary and comprehensive report, again, which I'll share later on when you come back from your breakout session. It's important, if possible, to give presentations, talks across campus to highlight findings. Sharing documents is fantastic, but sometimes having room for these conversations can also be a meaningful activity. Something I have not done in my institution, but something I'm intrigued at, and I just put it down here as a possible option for you all, is to creating kind of an action plan. What are some steps we can commit to maybe at a larger level, and asking campus partners to sign on to make a difference? Would this be effective? Is there other ways to kind of not only see the results, but kind of work together if there's an area to improvement to make change? And then it's very important when you give these presentations or you have these conversations with folks across campus to obtain feedback about what you need to improve for any future assessments on this topic. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I want to also, before we go on in the breakout rooms, I want to share with you some debriefing questions, because the plan is to put you into breakout rooms, and we have, it sounds like, about maybe 34, 35 participants of maybe 3 to 4. Your job is to look at the framework and the PDF that was shared, download on the computer, look at it with your other colleagues in your breakout room, and then think about these 3 questions here. What were your takeaways from the breakout session? As you're working together to put together one or more, let's say, potential projects or assessment projects you're already undertaking, what are kind of your takeaways from this exercise? 2, do you have any advice how to improve the framework? This is my first attempt of trying to put something together, and I definitely value your opinion, as we come back. And 3, any advice about how to conduct campus-wide student affairs assessment initiatives? I'm still relatively new to this work, and I would love your input, especially for some of you who have been involved in this work for a long time. We discussed some debriefing questions, but I want to join now and talk about some general questions. I also have my contact information at the bottom, so if you want to reach out to me, we can discuss by email or have a special Zoom session or whatnot. I'm more than happy to continue the conversation. So I'm going to open this up now to general questions from the audience.
Doctor, I equipped with my breakout group that the only way I was able to successfully have a focus group attended by students was by offering a tray full of Chick-fil-A nuggets. Without that, they wouldn't have shown up. But I did want to kind of in a general sense, with just a few minutes that we have, identifying and encouraging I don't know if this is really a question as much as it is kind of just a broad statement, but I put it to you to bounce back. Identifying and encouraging your partner, your campus partner participants, the other professionals that are going to benefit from your assessment and can also help you disseminate, collect feedback, disseminate the assessment tool and bring the feedback. I feel that creating the buy-in with those partners is about demonstrating the mutual benefit of them participating in the assessment, getting the feedback so that they can also learn and grow, because so often assessment has such a kind of a heavy connotation. A lot of campus professionals are reticent to really participate, and being able to say, okay, I need your help with this. It's going to be good for both of us when we get the feedback. Your part of it is going to be nominal. I'm going to take, carry the weight of the project, but I need your help. And I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that perspective of getting campus partners to participate and assist in assessment projects?
That's a great question, John. I think you touched on a lot of things I would do, but I would also add a few things. And again, I'll just walk you through the process because some of you might have a lot of experience in this area, some of you might not. It starts by me emailing, first of all, being involved in a variety of institutional committees. So I get to know a lot of folks on campus, especially since I've already been at UNCW for a few years. So they know who I am. Then I email them and I explain I'm working, example, on a project, and I would like if I could meet with them to kind of explain the project and see if we could collaborate. I can also mention I'm targeting your group of students as part of the students that I'm working with for this project. So I come, and I'm very intentional, I come to them because we are all very busy. I'm more than happy to spend 20 minutes walking across campus to go and show the respect that I'm coming to you. And like what John was saying, I'm also really focused on talking about the mutual benefit that, for example, student success is everyone's work. I could argue in higher education. We all want to help our students succeed. That's why we're here. So I explained to them the importance of the project. I explained to them what is going to be involved from their end. Often for me, it's just input on a question. And then after getting the input and the buy-in and showing that they're involved in the project, I also have a request if they could help disseminate it to their student group, if they have any access. And that way I better craft the instrument or the assessment to kind of include what they want, but it's also relevant to, let's say, the assessment outcomes, but B, also get a bigger dissemination plan where people are willing to share with their groups of students in a different way, than maybe I could through random sampling or just kind of a big, or if they're having other people email on my behalf, if that makes sense. Any other questions? I know we only have about 1 minute left, but I'm open. Let me see, there's something in the chat. I'm curious if you use a set of questions document resource for folks to use as they reflect on findings during the share and improve phase. So I have not, but I think that's a great thing to put, to think about as this model's framework is further developed, that if we can go and have that, and have some kind of better resource rather than just saying that you're going to share and improve, some kind of guiding framework for people to consider. Thank you for that suggestion.
All right. Doctor, I hate to be abrupt, but we are at the end of our hour. Thank you so much for being here. Very much enjoyed the conversation that you prompted for us. Thank you for the materials. We appreciate everybody being here today. So let's give a round of applause to Dr. Pachelka. Thank you again for being here. I want to remind everybody that we are going to have our next SAL, our September SAL structured conversation on pathways for engaging students in assessment, exploring practices and strategies to foster equity-minded assessment. That's going to be on Wednesday, September 18th. Please watch out for our notification for that, and also know that we will have all of the materials and the recording for today's meeting on our SAL page. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and thank you again, Doctor.
Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate the time and SAL giving me the opportunity. I wish you all the best, and again, please feel free to contact me if you want to continue the conversation offline.